Welcome to our regular trustee meeting for Monday, September 14th, 2020 at 5 o'clock p.m. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We have an agenda today. Are there any changes or corrections?
Yes, Board, I have three changes. First of all, under new business, I'd like to move Stonehill Village tax and increment financing and the agreement to before the pre-scheduled speaker. Although pre-scheduled speaker may be on the call, so it really won't matter anyhow. Two would be under IT. I would like to, before bi-weekly, put a request for proposal for IT management services. And third, under fiscal officer, I'd like to add the safer resolution update.
Okay. Any other changes or corrections? I'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second?
Trustee Kretz?
Yes.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Wallace?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $372,516.67 for the 8/26/2020 payroll.
Second.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Kretz?
Yes.
Trustee Wallace?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $391,696.08 for the September 9th, 2020 payroll.
Second?
Trustee Kretz?
Yes.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Wallace?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the payments listing report in the amount of $432,225.71 for warrants through 9/4/2020.
Second.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Kretz?
Yes.
Trustee Wallace?
Yes. We have minutes from the August 24th, 2020 regular trustee meeting. Are there any changes or corrections?
None?
Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the August 24th, 2020 regular trustee meeting and the September 1st, 2020 special trustee meeting.
Second?
Trustee Kretz?
Yes.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Wallace?
Yes.
Thank you.
We're at a portion in our meeting where we have citizens desiring to speak. If anyone wants to speak, we will allow you 3 minutes. And we'll be happy for you to come up to the podium and give your name and address and tell us what you're thinking about. Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Mr. Zahariev?
Thank you, Board. In your packet on page 20 is a TIF resolution establishing a TIF with Stonehill Village. As the Board was aware during the site plan process, let the Board know that myself and our legal advisor, Don Frick, was negotiating with Stonehill Village for the Zone 3, or what we've known to be the mixed commercial piece along Dayton in the corner of Dayton and Trayvon. With us today, regarding the representing Stonehill Village, we have Mr. and Mrs. Nutter with us, as well as Chris Connolly from TAF, who's was working with myself in legal in regards to negotiating the terms and agreement of the resolution establishing the TIF, and then followed by the TIF agreement. As the Board knows that we have to establish the TIF first, and then pass the TIF agreement. In some cases, you pass the resolution, and then we negotiate the TIF agreement over weeks or months, and in this case, we're able to do both. Years, yeah, yes, in some cases, yes. So we're able to do both in a quick manner. In regards to the TIF, it's a 75% TIF for 10 years. By law, we are to notify the school districts that are affected by the TIF, so in this case, Beavercreek City Schools, and also the Green County Career Center. We have to give them a 14-day notice to file any objections or support it. They have that ability as well. You'll see in your packet that we made that notification on August 31st. We first made a phone call to both the superintendents to let them know the framework and some of the thought process behind it, and that they would be receiving a notification. Both superintendents were very appreciative of that process. Most of the time, they just get paperwork being notified of the TIF. It does not require a vote for a 75 10-year TIF by either school board. We just have to notify them. As you can see there, both letters were signed that they accepted. And I followed up phone calls with the superintendent of the Greene County Career Center. Actually, I met with them after while we were taking a tour of the new facility. The superintendent of Beavercreek Schools asked me to sit down with their legal counsel and the chair of the Board of Education, Joanne Rivera. Myself and Max McConnell met with the school board and explained the TIF in detail, explained the area, and had a very long discussion of how TIFs work. The question came up regarding how many TIFs does the township have. This technically is the fourth, because we were involved in the first one, which would be the Green. This would be the third for the unincorporated area of the township. Schools did ask if we were looking on any others, and the answer was yes. We were working with Haughty University with another TIF, but Beavercreek Schools has been at the table since day one on that one as well, so they were aware of that. If you have any questions, Ms. Frick and I can answer them. The applicant's here if you'd like to hear, not really the applicant, the other party to the TIF is here if you would like to ask them a question. And legal counsel for Stoneville Village is here as well.
Great. Are there any questions from the board?
Alex, just if you can provide maybe a 35,000-foot level just description for any residents that might be watching how a TIF, what the benefit to the township and to the community is for us putting a TIF on this collection of properties.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. So in a 75% TIF, we first establish a level of public infrastructure that will kick the TIF in or establish the TIF where we start diverting funds from the Greene County Auditor to a fund that will be established in Beavercreek Township, in this case just called the Stonehill Village TIF. So if there's an increased value on the property, 75% of that increased value comes to the township. The other 25 is still dispersed amongst all the other levies that are in place. So all the county levies, all the township levies, and any of the school levies that would be affected. So that 25 cents, and that goes for 10 years. And then once the 10 years is established, then it goes back to the regular levies that are in place in regards to disbursement. What will happen is, once we hit that threshold, that money then goes into the TIF fund, so the county auditor has the sole authority to see that if there has been, in this case, $2.5 million of public infrastructure and increased value on the property, then they'll notify the fiscal officer to know that we're starting to divert the funds into the Stonehill. There's several things we can do with the TIF, and this TIF agreement's very explains exactly what we're going to be doing with the money at a high level. So there could be some work between the landowner and the developer and the township. In this case, in some TIFs, the township can issue bonds for public improvements, so roadways, sidewalks, bike paths, fire hydrants, street lights. You can use TIF money for local match, for Ohio Public Works Commission grants, track grants with ODOT, or we can use it for projects regarding the transportation improvement projects or TIP through Miami Valley Regional Planning. Or it could be a straight reimbursement to the developer. And that's how this is set up. So you can see some samples in the TIF agreement, how the applicant has to fill it out. The developer has to fill it out and then seek reimbursement to the township.
The common, I think, misnomer is that it's a tax abatement. And in fact, what it is, at least my understanding of a TIF, is that in this type of scenario is that those tax dollars essentially are being carved back, put in a bank to be used for infrastructure within the community and specifically on those parcels. And so it's not as though the community is going to miss out on that. The community will actually benefit from it because it's public infrastructure that's going to go in. So.
And the other thing I pointed out, they're going to see that 25% increase in regards to their levies.
Right.
And in 10 years, they're going to get 100% of it. So, and we can't bank the money, we have to reinvest it back into public infrastructure.
Yep.
So, we have a lot of opportunities in that Zone 3 that was established by the Stone Hill PD. And I think in this case, Mr. and Mrs. Nutter have a lot of plans and benefits to Beavercreek Township regarding commercial development.
And the 10-year clock begins as each parcel is developed?
Correct.
Correct.
So, yes, so it's not a boundary. It is actually, as you'll see, both in the resolution and in the agreement, we identify the parcels so that if one of them hits the threshold of $2.5 million, then the TIF kicks in and that 10-year clock starts. If the parcel next to it doesn't get developed for 3 or 4 years, and then we have a business or a commercial business that meets the guidelines of the TIF, then that 10-year clock will then start.
Good.
And just to kind of let the board know the history, we did the same thing with the other TIFs. It's listed by parcel. So there could be multiple parcels in that TIF of
Right.
different timelines.
Right.
In this case, there's three parcels that we identified.
Okay.
Mr. Zahir, thank you for the explanation, but also I want to thank you for your staff in working with the transparency that you did with the school systems that were involved and the communication process. You've achieved a great process, I believe, with all the applicants and participants in this TIF. So thank you for your work on that.
And I thank Max too. He gathered a lot of information for me to be prepared for the schools, and then it was part of that meeting with the schools.
Good. Hearing no other comments or suggestions, I recommend a motion.
You can pass there's no changes to what's in the packet.
So the draft dated 8/18/2020 is unchanged? That's the
What
one
was in the packet.
that's what's in the packet?
Yeah, that is correct. And just to let the board know, I have, excuse me?
You could do it as presented rather than reading the entire.
Sure.
That's where I
It's
was
like
going
3
with the
pages
motion.
long. I was
Yes.
like, whoa.
3 pages long, so as presented is fine. I have,
We
just
might
to let
be
the
here
board
for a
know, I have
minute.
2 copies for you to sign, as well as the fiscal officer. I will take both copies, and staff is ready to go tomorrow, to go ahead and file this with the Greene County Auditor's Office and bring it back with one copy for them with a file stamp from the Greene County Auditor, 1 copy for us, they'll have the Greene County stamp on it, and then 1 of the copies for Mr. and Mrs. Nutter, as well as both council.
Great.
And is this one in the packet under the map? The one
Correct.
says adoption
The
date
map,
September 14th?
Yeah, the map is, just to give you a reference in
Okay.
the packet, so yes, it's the resolution after that, on page 36 of your packet.
Okay. I make a motion to adopt a resolution declaring improvements to parcels of real property located in Beavercreek Township, Ohio, to be a public purpose under section 5709.73B of the Ohio Revised Code. Where'd I go? Implement such improvements from real property taxation, declaring certain public improvements to be a public purpose and necessary for the further development of the parcels, and establishing a tax increment equivalent fund as presented.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, board. Next item is on page 42 of your packet, is the Stone Hill Village TIF agreement. The only changes that were in your packet that is different from the printed pieces, I entered all the dates for today. And I'll enter the resolution number that passed for your signatures. When we'll do the same thing as well with the agreement, with the 2 copies. I'll be able to answer any questions you may have, or the developer, Mr. Nutter, or both legal counsels.
Do you have any comments? Numbers?
Yes.
I appreciate again the detail, but I had one question just for the Nutters, and that is there any color that was specifically left out when you were naming these?
I was gonna ask
There has to
that.
be.
Everyone I could think of.
Like, how did you determine the colors and which colors went with which one?
I had the
Did you
first
just
scarlet
pick-
gray in there, of course.
I'm sure there's blue somewhere.
Really?
Once again, you can pass a motion as presented in the packet.
And this is just the TIF agreement on page 42, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the tax increment financing agreement for Stonehill Village project as presented.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Well, we'd like to thank everybody for all of the due diligence and effort and hard work as well, and we're really excited moving forward, with the project, and we really do appreciate everybody's help and time and hard work and effort.
I think this project will be great for Beavercreek Township
Yes.
and all of the residents of
I
Beaver
agree.
Creek.
We agree.
So it's very exciting.
Yep,
Keep it
We're gonna
rolling.
make it beautiful.
yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Board, we do have another resolution, I apologize, so the TIF agreement, and there's also a resolution saying that we're creating a TIF agreement, so that motion is fine, that you did, so.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
I thought you said there were 3 documents.
Two documents of each of the agreement.
Okay, all right.
And then the resolution.
I thought there was
Another
3 copies.
resolution establishing the actual agreement, so I'll make it on the so go ahead and just back to
So that'll still be G.
still be.
We could have, has Bob already signed?
No, not yet.
Not yet, okay. I didn't know if he'd countersigned another document.
Yeah.
so.
What I'll do is send them all with their final stamp.
Okay.
Thank you, Board. Next item would be rescheduled speaker. As you are aware, that Ohio Task Force 1 deployed for Hurricane Laura. Also parts of the team, from my understanding, has been potentially could be deployed for the next hurricane, unfortunately in the same area. This is a program that the Board of Township Trustees obviously have supported over the years. That it's an asset for the community. We use them as a local resource with all our training all our employees receive. But when they're also deployable through Ohio Task Force 1 at a federal level as well. And as a federal declaration, we're reimbursed for their time as well as any time for people that we may call in while they are gone, or when we call them in as when they're deployed. I have Lieutenant Hedrick here, who's going to talk about the deployment. There were 3 employees from Beavercreek Township, and I'll let the Lieutenant talk about that, and I'll pull up the pictures.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Thank you for letting me come in. So we, with the new age with COVID going on, we actually get tested before we leave, and we actually have to wear masks during the whole deployment, and everybody did a pretty good job at that. So that way they could document, if we had it beforehand or prior to. So any deployment from here on out, as long as this is still going on, we actually get tested each time. But we, So 3 of us rostered, 2 on rescue, so there's a couple different specialties within the task force. 2 on rescue, myself and Lieutenant Courtney Harmon, and then our K-9, Nick Fothergill, that you guys know. Nick's situation was actually unique because he actually got loaned out to Colorado Task Force when we met up in Shreveport, Louisiana, because they were missing a K-9. So he wasn't with us for the majority of the deployment. We ended up driving straight through the night and stayed at a school in Shreveport in their gym just for the night, and then got up, packed up our sleeping bags, got in our vehicles, and drove down to Lake Charles, which is about 30 minutes from the coast. I believe when the hurricane hit, it was right around a Category 4, so pretty significant damage throughout the whole state, and actually some states further up north. I'm going to look at my phone so I don't screw up any of the stats. So we went down as a Type 1 team, which is the biggest of the teams that could go. It's between 80 and 90 people. And we ended up, Ohio alone had checked about 25,225 structures. So we used an application similar to what was used here for the tornadoes. So I mean, that's a benefit for us if we have to experience something like that again locally with the training that we've received with using that. Total, Ohio had collected 66% of all the data that the FEMA teams have collected, and then overall 44%. And it's not bragging or gloating. We had a lot of personnel out in the field collecting data, meeting people, helping people that needed it, helping animals, rescuing animals. We were working pretty hard. Heat index of 105, 110. It should have been on a time loop. Okay. So we actually slept in these tents while we were on a tarmac at an airport that was our base of operations. Go ahead and click. And this is just some of the damage that we encountered while we were out there. Our first couple of days were checking structures, but then it was also checking structures. I mean, besides for just checking structures, checking on people, after our second day or third day, we actually started, per the state of Louisiana, what they wanted us to do was check with people that run generators too. They had a couple of deaths because of people running their generators inside the garages or in the house. You know, they were worried about theft or whatever else.
It's working out. For a second.
For a brief second. But it is a tremendous opportunity for us to go on that. This was my 4th deployment that I've been on. Nick Fothergill's been on a few, and the other personnel have gone on them too. The training and the resources that we receive on the team we bring back here, like the township administrator was talking, to help develop our local responses and trainings, as well as the contacts we make throughout the state and other states too if we need it. It's a tremendous, tremendous opportunity for us. That was right before it made landfall. It was pretty widespread. We didn't make it down to the coast, so we were in the Lake Charles area our whole deployment. So like I said, it's about 30 miles from the coast. This is our new warehouse. It's the old Emory building at Dayton International. We have the northwest corner of it, so that was us getting ready to load up. That was a picture of us going through one of the neighborhoods. We respond with 17 vehicles between pickup trucks, big box trucks, semis, and a bus that's also set up for communications, planning, logistics. And then 2 of our pickup trucks tow boats and 2 of them tow ATVs. They're actually almost identical to the Kubota that we have upstairs. So it was, with working the night and the next couple of days of like our tornado that we had here, it was similar with the damage, but more widespread. Definitely more widespread. The people that were down there were nice, friendly. They're actually offering us food and water, and it's just a tremendous opportunity to be part of the team, and we all appreciate you guys allowing us to do it.
What was your total deployment? How long were you gone? When did you get back?
I think it was right around 9 days.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're all waiting to hear if we're going to be going again now. So
The likeliness that they'll send the same individuals or they rotate?
it's hit or miss. They will rotate, but it also depends on a couple factors. Trainings, rotating if you have water. This one that I think is slated to hit sounds like it's going to be a big rainmaker.
Yeah.
So more of the water component aspect will be involved. I just don't know for sure how all that'll play out.
Yeah, that's what I'd heard. It was going to be slow moving and dump a lot of water.
Yeah. I know myself, Lieutenant Harmon, and Lieutenant Ransdell put in that we were available to respond for this one as well. And I believe Nick did, but with him being part of search with K9, I don't know how they do theirs yet.
So does the entire task force then rotate back after the 9 days, or do they rotate people in and out?
So we
They
could
leave?
technically be gone for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then they say prepare for a third just in case.
The group of individuals that you're traveling with, or the entire task force has to come back within 2 weeks? I assume they set up almost like a mini base camp there.
Yeah, it would
Rotate people for.
generally, we would be done then. They could extend it, but they could rotate, I guess, other personnel down. I haven't experienced that at all. My longest has been, I think, 10 days. But then now all of Ohio came back together, so like we didn't stay down there.
Sure.
Yeah,
Because all the equipment was back.
yeah. And then rehab prep, we all cleaned up all our stuff, all our personal stuff too. And we'll see what happens with this one.
How were the mosquitoes?
It actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I mean, we had bug repellent,
Sure.
but it was more the sunscreen and water. A lot of water. This was right before we actually left.
So all of Ohio, they all meet there at the,
Yeah, so Ohio is unique for the FEMA system. I'll say unique. Out of the 28 teams, the majority of the teams are sponsored by one fire department. So like Indiana is sponsored by Indianapolis, to where our departments are a conglomerate. So we have people from Ohio, from Michigan, from Kentucky, I think Tennessee, and Pennsylvania. And as long as they can meet the time commitment to get to our warehouse, which is I think 3 to 4 hours, you could be on the team. Once you meet all your qualifications. So these individuals, and I'm somewhere in there, are from all over. It's not just our Dayton area. We're based out of Dayton.
So it's called the Ohio Task Force, but it's multi-state.
Yeah, it's because we have 28 teams, and I thought there was another team or something like that was similar to that. Florida has 2 task forces. They're primary from bigger cities that they cover. New York has 2. There's 10 in the East Coast altogether. And then 9 and 9. So 9 in Central and 9 on the West Coast. So.
we had a lot of individuals responding if they're, each team is bringing that many people.
Yeah, so on this one, I don't remember how many teams went. Not everybody went as a Type 1 team. Some of them went as a Type 3 or Type 4, which is less people, same equipment, less people. And then when I went to Hurricane Michael, we went as just a water MRP, so it was just 16 of us with some pickup trucks, our boats, our equipment, and then one of our box trucks. And we slept in tents similar to that.
So when you go down, you bring your own rations?
Yeah, we are self-sufficient for at least 3 days. So between water and MREs, that's our.
So you're saying that you like to sleep on cots and eat MREs?
I like camping.
Well, we
I heard
really-
about the rations. I have a friend on Task Force One. He was telling me about the
Yeah.
eating MREs for a few days.
But the state of Louisiana, they took great care of us. I think after day 2, they ended up bringing us breakfast, lunch, and dinner the whole time, so we got to take a break from the MREs. But the communities down there, they were tremendous. They were offering us help, It was just pretty outstanding to be a part of that. And in some of those places, it's going to take a while for them to rebuild. One of the linemen was saying he wouldn't be surprised if it was months before some of the places got power back on.
Wow.
So,
Well, we really thank you for coming, Lieutenant, and it's nice to have the Beavercreek citizens be able to see some of the things that you've done, and we're proud that the Beavercreek Fire Department, Township Fire Department, can send you and help other communities in need.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
no, we appreciate you guys allowing us to be on the team.
Make sure you voice our happiness of you coming and telling us about it to your other team members.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're off today. They couldn't come in, so I apologize. You guys got stuck with me.
Well,
But
that's all right.
different setup this time than I've done in the past, and we'll have to work on the picture thing a little bit better. But
No problem.
But we appreciate you.
yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
thank you.
Thank
Great,
you.
Thank you. Have a good
Stay
night.
safe.
Okay, moving into Greene County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Board. On page 61 is the biweekly report, followed by the August monthly report on page 89. Sergeant Moore is here to answer any questions.
Welcome back, Sergeant Moore.
Thank you, good to be back.
Are there any questions to Sergeant Moore? Or about his report?
I had none. It looks like the year-to-date comparison, extra patrol is really where a good chunk of the additional activity year over year. Between that and business check, is that a fair assessment? So, and
That is, sir, and that's just that's a stick pin to just show,
Yeah.
the efforts of the folks on patrol and the preventative patrolling that we do. And I can also tell you that they're not putting a stick pin in absolutely everything, because that would just take up too much time. But when they get into an industrial park or, a space drive, they might log a check there, but they're checking all the businesses as well in there too. So it's just to show the activity of everybody out here.
good. Any points of awareness that we need to be brought before us as far as future consideration?
Not at this time, sir. I probably am working on a couple of things that I might bring to your attention in the meetings to come. But would like to make you aware that we, as the Sheriff's Office, we applied for and have received in years past, and we were just approved again, to receive approximately 1,000 hours of paid overtime for the Sheriff's Office for a grant through the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, and that trickles down through Ohio, and then that's dispersed out. And so we received 1,000 hours of that as a sheriff's office, and then that allows individuals to sign up, it's awarded, and to come out and do traffic enforcement. And being under the umbrella of the sheriff's office, we're able to then work with, or I'm able to work with the captain and the major to identify trouble areas. So obviously the construction area here in 35 targeted, and it was also targeted prior to the construction areas. But we're able to take and allocate those working those extra traffic control details and bring them down here, and the township benefits from that significantly. So that might be somebody that's assigned here working some overtime, or it might be somebody who's not assigned to the township, but they're still directed in this direction and able to do that. We're able to track our citations just as a broad brush. And when I say citations, that also means written warnings, encounters and stuff with citizens. And just based on that, we're able to make a lot of contact, bring safety to the attention of drivers through the area, the reduced speed limits that are occurring on 35 and in that area. And I also like to think that we those efforts have minimized the traffic accidents in the area as a result of going down to one lane sometimes, and just the congestion has been caused. Really proud of their efforts, but it's also just nice to have those grants coming from the sheriff's office themselves, and it doesn't affect anything here budgeting wise in the township.
Great.
Sergeant Moore, what's the, is it a specific spot, or is it just when you say LIDAR post?
I'm sorry.
You have LIDAR post.
Yeah, that stands, that's a radar LiDAR post. So it's a traffic control post, so it's just a documented area that a deputy might go out
Okay.
and just dedicate himself to just nothing but running radar or LiDAR with a laser, as you might say.
Okay.
And it's just wherever that is showing is that was conducted at that point.
So what's the difference between radar and LIDAR?
Sure. Radar is what you see on our cruisers. They're outside of the cruisers. The cones that are right next to the light bar there, and that's radar. Our cruisers, they're on 90% of the time as we drive around. So, and then the LiDAR is just another way to say the laser. And so if you ever see, or you're driving and you see what appears to be like something being held up,
That's LiDAR.
And look through. So the radar, without getting into a big descriptive thing, it gives you the speed of multiple vehicles, and this through your training and whatnot, you identify the vehicle that's going the fastest and on the display. And the laser is just very specific. It's pointed at the front of the vehicle. Having a front license plate was always very helpful in that. But pointing it at the front of the vehicle, it reflects back and it can tell you the target, the speed of that specific target vehicle.
Okay.
And they're just in both, and you're just doing speed, just watching speed at that point.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments to Sergeant Moore?
I had no additional comments.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate your report.
Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 100. We have 3 policy updates. As we mentioned, this was a goal of ours to get done last year. Unfortunately, due to the tornado, it kind of pushed things, and then we ran up against the pandemic. But these changes, there won't be everyone. They come to the board, so we go through a review process. We have risk management that comes in through OTARMA, and just as a risk assessment of the township, as well as reviewing policies. So they're very happy when they come here because they see that we have it spelled out when we look at them, reviewed them, and made any changes as we can follow, as you see there in the header, when it originally was approved, when it was revised, and when it was reviewed. So they make recommendations based on industry standards for townships, things that they're seeing either through litigation or other HR things that are coming. So some of these changes are based on that. Once these changes are made and some of the things that are outdated or changed because of case law is then sent to Doug Ansball with TAF, who's our labor attorney, and reviews it. So the ones that are just being reviewed will be going through the same process, but if there's no changes, it won't be voted on by the board. However, when we post it on SharePoint, it will show the review date of when it was First one I have for you is just the general statement. We're starting from the beginning. I'm gonna work to the end, and we're gonna probably bring for the next several meetings, 3 or 4, depending on the changes or the length of changes. As you can see there, all the changes are marked in different colors, but those are changes, so it's either changes that Trish made, or legal made, or I suggested on changes. So you'll see there, and I have 3 separate motions for each of them. And then once again, once it's fully complete, it can be reviewed for any new employees, but as we make these changes, we're going to be sending them out for the board to review, or excuse me, the employees to review. So first one is on page 100 is the general statement. Are there any questions on that one?
Why are we deleting the references as far as the only exceptions being resolutions 2008, 369, and such?
So
I wondered that as well.
The resolution, so when we passed the original, the last update, we put a narrative as part of that, but all previous resolutions identifying to these policies are null and void. And that was recommended. So this was a catch of, we had these in here, so they're no longer referenced. So then we don't, there are 2 reasons. One, we don't have to go back and change resolutions every time or update resolutions. So if we make a change in the policy manual, we don't have to bring other additional resolutions for change.
And also, that was specific for their leave, and so when we get to vacation leave and sick leave, you'll see that I've made amendments to those sections to, resolve some of the issues that were the reason for the resolution to begin with.
Which part of it, so for example, like the resolutions the board passed for the reorganization of the fire department, the ones that are identified previously in there are null and void because you passed new ones as well.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the general statement policy, section 1, number 1, as presented.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, board. On page 103 is the next change. There are several changes to this. This was based not only on recommendations from Trish, based on HR standards, but also OTARMA and legal as well.
I actually had questions on this one, and it's just a question because obviously when you expand these definitions, there is a double-edged sword to it. There's inherent risk obviously for the township by expanding these definitions, and there's inherent risk obviously for an employee that would violate because it's been further defined. What's legal's opinion with regards to where we've stepped beyond the Civil Rights Act as far as protected classes?
Are you talking about Doug Onslow, or are you asking that specifically to Don?
Well, Doug, if he's the one that reviewed it, I'm assuming Don
Yeah.
did not review or did review? Okay, so
It was Doug, and actually that first paragraph, the amendments come specifically from the EEOC's website, so these are areas that they are identifying. So it's changed since this document was originally drafted.
okay, but again, what's legal's opinion, or what did our legal counsel essentially say with regards to, because we have stepped beyond protected classes. So the one argument that a lot of people make is if we need to protect more classes, then we need to change the overarching document that protects that. As you add other categories to that, what's the enforceability of it is my concern. So from a standpoint, if we
Doug did not
have
have any changes to this document, so.
Okay.
The only, of these 3, the only changes that he made were for the harassment, and they were just very minimal.
Okay. Dawn, what's your opinion?
Well, I mean, the law still is what is going to govern what classes are protected under the eyes of the law. So when you're looking at the specific protected classes of, gender, race, nationality, disability, so on and so forth. That's gonna govern what's protected by the law. But there are still claims that can come if you protect certain classes within your policy manual that maybe not necessarily be protected under statutory protections under 4112 or Title VII, then there's a potential to open up someone to make certain, I mean, it's difficult because this, at the beginning of the policy, I'm sure we have in there that this doesn't establish a contractual relationship. They are still at-will employees. Sometimes you can raise some potential claims of like a promissory sort of estoppel type claim, but that's likely not going to happen either. It's just, the law is moving in this direction, but ultimately what's going to protect the township is still going to be governed by what the law protects versus what's in here. What's good is the EEOC likes to look at these other classes, even though technically it's not contained within the law.
Right.
So if they see that your policy manual contains that's looked on positively by the EEOC and the OCRC as they're evaluating, because sometimes you could have a claim under a protected class, but the OCRC and EEOC are still going to look at your policies, look at everything you all have, things like that. So it doesn't hurt to put them in there, because that's just sort of where things are going right now.
Right, I guess, in speaking with other groups or private sectors that are going through similar type revision process, the concern obviously is that, yes, it can aid or help as a deterrent to bad behavior or behavior that you don't want to encourage. But if you make a termination based on this and it's outside of the law, that you've teed up a legal battle that's going to be very long and expensive. Which is pretty much what you're saying, if I understand what you're saying, Dawn.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a deterrent, but we're governed by what the law says, not what our policy says. But if we make a termination based on this policy, and it's beyond the scope of the law, we have the potential for an expensive legal battle that we'll likely lose.
Well, and another point is, this is.
I'm not arguing whether they should or should not be protected. I'm arguing whether we should have a policy that's beyond the scope of the law.
Well, so your insurance company says you have to have this. So we're dealing with two things here. So when we have the risk assessment and OTARMA comes in, they look at things like this. This was a major area that they identified last year that we're getting, that was postponed just because of what we had going on last year in the community. But came back this year, and it was not a finding in our last risk assessment this year because we were going through and making these changes and bringing them forward. So we have two things that kind of govern this. Is your insurance company requires these because they have dealt with other clients, so let me say this: OTARMA hires somebody from the outside to come in and they're established here in Ohio, and they meet. When she meets with me, it's usually 3 or 4 townships in one day in the area here. So, and so this was something that we passed on that we needed to make a change to.
Okay. Do we have something from OTARMA in writing saying that this is what they want us to pass? We have that document?
Yep, every year. Every year they sign. And some years they say no changes, recommend just putting these things in.
Okay. And have we gone beyond their recommendation?
No.
So we've included everything that they've asked for. We've added nothing in addition to what they've asked for.
So what they will not do is give you the details. So they'll say.
Because that's where where I'm heading with this.
I know where you're heading.
Because if they say,
it's a catch-22.
put this in your policy,
Yeah.
then there's no excuse for not covering a claim.
Right, and we ask sometimes for sample language, what they provide, what other townships have gone through, either through their prosecutor's
Sure.
office or their legal counsel. So this is taking what we've seen with the EEOC, what we're getting from the risk consultants, and putting it in one document.
So based on that, then they have not given us this language because.
No, they wouldn't.
That's
They
what
just
I'm
don't
at,
do
that's what
that.
I was asking,
Yeah.
is did they
Because what you're gonna
specify?
s- which would, the next thing will happen is, if we are in litigation.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're gonna go around and go, well, our insurance company said this, and they won't do that. So, the risk consultants, okay? So, like, for example, bullying,
Right.
gotta be a checkbox. When they look at the document in like the personnel manual or policy procedures, whatever township,
But
policy.
is hazing bullying? Because hazing occurs in most union environments to some degree.
That's right.
So, is there hazing in this policy?
Well, if it falls under, the list that we have,
Yeah.
it could be.
Right, but it's not necessarily bullying. That's
Well,
what I'm saying,
if it's
you can
repeated,
get into the weeds
That's
of
why I
this.
put the 4.2, to kind of clarify that a little bit more. It's repeated health harming, mistreatment, of one or more people by one or more perpetrators, so.
Right, I was trying to understand health harming, because it may or may not be health
Right.
harming. It may be.
Exactly.
It may be mental
A lot of
health,
these
but
are-
not physical health, and we haven't defined that. I'm not trying to argue
Right.
the nit of it,
No,
I'm
I
just saying.
understand, yeah. but
Because when I looked at that, I
a lot of
thought
these are-
that should be reworded to say mental or physical health, because you could not physically hurt someone, but you could mentally,
Right.
you could cause mental anguish for
Right.
someone.
Exactly. Yeah, but these are all gonna be fact specific anyway, any situation like this that we would come across.
How do you define a factual snarky comment?
Well, when you're dealing with complaints like this.
I'm just
like we're
asking,
dealing
how
with
do you do
EEOC,
that?
It's based on the interpretation of the employee. So we have
Right, but
defended
you have two
successfully
opinions of the
EEOC and,
But you have,
Ohio.
you have two opinions of that
Civil Rights
interpretation.
Yeah, Civil Rights Commission.
You have two opinions of that interpretation. The one who made the comment and the one who received the comment.
And
That's what I'm saying.
why
How
they
do-
assign
how do you-
investigators to investigate it and.
How do you have fact-based snarky comments?
This is the definition of bullying. So,
I know, it's really getting into the weeds.
I don't disagree, but this is an area that has been identified, we need to make a change.
And again, it's not a matter of should the township take a proactive approach to stop that, prevent that, deter that? Absolutely, yes. The question is, how do you define that in a policy that you can, A, enforce upon your employees, and number two, defend yourself if they claim that you don't have the right to enforce it? Those are my two concerns. Because I've argued outside of this venue that it makes no sense to put a rule in place that you cannot enforce. Unless you're simply trying to use it as a deterrent, and then you openly go into it knowing that you can't enforce it.
Well, Tom, I mean, I would say though, that, okay, if you have a policy that says you can't do something based on, we'll use, for example, gender identity or expression, and while that may not yet be fully protected by law, although I guess now it pretty much is, you could still terminate someone based on a violation of the policy. Whether that's a protected class goes to whether or not the individual that claims to have been treated differently because of their gender identity or expression or something like that, whether they have a claim. But in terms of whether you terminated someone because of something they did to that person, that would then be a violation of policy, and therefore you have a terminable offense. So, I mean, I think you still have, protection from that perspective. And what you're saying here, though, is you're not gonna treat, as a township, people differently based on those various categories.
Okay?
Does that make sense? I mean, I don't know that you're necessarily.
I don't disagree with you, right, I don't disagree with you. So, on number 4, as far as 4.1, what is the difference between a supervisor's constant criticism of an employee who is constantly doing things the improper or wrong way, and that employee makes a hostile workplace environment claim. Because there have been situations in the past where a supervisor was accused of creating a hostile work environment. And it was, my understanding was it was a situation where an employee was being corrected repeatedly for the same or similar mistakes.
Well, those are documents.
That's where documentation is important.
Correct.
So is that supervisor now subject to also bullying?
No, because it would be, if it's documented counseling, it's a whole other policy, and it's tracked.
If it's documented.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right.
It's documented, and that's why we do training with all our supervisors to enforce those things. So, yeah, there's verbal. We're going through this kind of now with
Right.
some of the discussions and negotiations as well. There is a clear path in regards to altering somebody's behavior, okay? So it's what we call progressive discipline, okay? So we have different things, documented verbal, so in other words, you're documenting that you sat the employee down and you had these issues. If they're not corrected, then you are to go to the next level of discipline, which is a written, which is now documenting all the behavior that we continue to see. And then it continues to escalate and it can all the way go up to recommended termination to the Board of Township Trustees. So, now, that is part of our training of our supervisors, so that's one thing with TAP that we get as a client, we get free training through, and those are the things that we kind of hit. And we record some of those trainings so that we have new supervisors that can go out.
I mean, I will say, Tom, I agree with you on that perspective, that it's only as good as the people who do the documentation, so I'm not sure where this bullying definition came from, or, I think
Yeah,
there's.
4.2, I have real concerns with, because, I would ask you to, how do you factually prove that it's health harming?
Oh, mental. It's hard to prove mental
Yeah,
health.
I haven't seen this one before, so.
So again, I have no problem with the overarching, what we're trying to accomplish. I have concerns with this text, so that's just my opinion, so.
4.2 or the whole thing?
The definitions in general. That we've gone, what appears to me very broad, and we'll have difficulty on the enforcement side.
We've had problems in the past with employees and supervisors understanding the policy
Right.
that we had in place. And it was, what we had before, it's been updated, but it hasn't really been modified this drastically to deal with present day issues that we're having. So I added definitions to try to give the supervisors, a better idea of what each section constituted. Just to help them understand. I mean, we do training.
Sure.
But, it's not something that is done every day. So, that's where that came from, was just to try to broaden it up a little bit so that they would have a better understanding when they needed to pull the document and read it.
Yeah, and I don't want to keep beating a dead horse. As far as Section 3, I have no issue at all with Section 3, with any bullet point in there. With 4, I have concerns about 4.1. I don't care for the language in 4.2. With regards to Section 2, my concern is it's either, sometimes you can get so specific that you've gone too far, and you can be too general. I understand that. So it just, again, it's just a based on some other experience that I've had, it just appears that we're getting off in the weeds a little bit too far. But
So, Tom, you have a concern about the sexual harassment definition as well?
it's really right. It's the overly specific / broad definitions. that are beyond, and it's just a concern. It's not, I'm not saying I wouldn't, that we shouldn't
Sure.
pass it. I'm just saying it's just a concern, expressing a concern. Section 3, I have no problem with. Section 4, like I said, I don't. 4.2, the township defines bullying as repeated health harming mistreatment of one or more people by one or more perpetrators.
But on the contrary, I mean, I'll take the other side of this, and like in section 2.1, I've had experiences where someone said, well, I was just whistling. Well, if you don't define it in a section,
Right, and
then
that's why I said almost,
you know,
you
it's,
can get too
because you
specific.
get, and these
then-
younger people coming in
Right.
just don't seem to grasp.
But is everything, is everything that's not, it's kind of when you look at the statute and we say, we can only do what the statute says, we can't do what the statute says we, doesn't say. So in this case, is everything that's not listed, have we gotten so specific that, is everything that's not listed still okay?
There's nothing much
Well,
not
that's why I
listed.
said it's fact specific. Each one, any investigation that we're gonna have to do that would fall under this policy, every single one is gonna be different.
But how do you factually define a snarky comment? Because that's one of our definitions here. I'm just using that as a simple example, because
Mm-hmm.
I can't define that.
Well,
You maybe haven't
honestly, it all depends.
I can explain.
Oh, I've been in, I'm just saying, I get it, but it's,
I could give you some examples, but I'd have to do it off that.
Yeah.
So,
but those are examples, so again, how do you define, have
we
you
have
gotten,
recordings of it.
have you gotten so specific
now,
of it?
It's how it makes the person feel, you know, so it's that type of stuff, you know, and it's cumulative.
dangerous.
It's not, in bullying, it's not just gonna be one comment.
Right, but
It's
my,
gonna be
but,
multiple things over time.
but my opinion of how I take a comment can be directly related to, do I feel secure in my job? Do I feel like I've not been doing a good job? And that all of a sudden, any comment that's made is derogatory. And it doesn't matter if it's male, female, that's receiving that comment. So if you're having problems at work and you're getting comments made to you, can you fall back on this and use this as your defense? So,
I think anybody can take anything as anything that they want to,
Right.
given any situation.
right. And that's my only concern is when you make it so specific, now is everything that's not listed still okay? And so,
Well, I think, well, no, because there's some real that say things like including but not limited to, and mention that it says, you know, that each situation will be dealt with, and it's fact specific. I mean, there could be some language that we could.
but it doesn't say that now,
address
right?
some of those concerns.
And that would be an improvement if it said that, because this does not, if you use that as an example, or including but not limited to, it leaves it,
Well,
it at least,
Right,
it at least allows you to expand it if you need to, so.
well, we do have that under the discipline section, so that's why I didn't add that here. So when you get to, you know, reasons for discipline,
Right,
we have that
yeah,
language, but I'm happy to add it here as well.
Yeah, I think it should be, if it were me, I would add it to the definitions, and that would at least take care of the specific exclusion, because it's not listed.
Okay. You agree with that?
That's fine, you know, can include, but not
But
limited to.
not limited to.
Unwelcome to, you know, unwelcome advances, you know.
And you have it in 1.2, but it's hit or miss, I guess, so if we can just make sure we're covered there.
So what we're saying then is all the definitional parts of this policy would include, but not limited to,
And we'll come up with some language on it,
okay.
that we'll have Don and Doug take a look at.
So we're gonna take the second one off the table?
Yeah.
If you guys want to vote on, I'm not saying stop, I'm just saying I think.
Well, I think we need to move
one more,
on, but
yeah.
I think that this, if we can, let's take it off the table.
Yeah.
And we'll put that language in and then bring it back to us. We don't have a time-sensitive issue here, so, just to get it done, correct?
Right, that's fine, I'll bring that
Okay,
with the suggested changes. Next one will be on page 109 in your packet, which is the equal employment opportunity. On once again, reviewed by council. I do have a motion. 22 pages.
Are there any questions or comments on the third section?
No.
Okay, hearing none, we can accept a motion on that.
I make a motion to approve the equal employment opportunity policy, section 2, number 2, as presented.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, board. Next item is the bi-weekly report on page 111. Are there any questions? And I will point out that there was a formula error on 113 on the graph, so there's not 4 claims for 2021.
Oh,
It
good.
should say 0.
Oh, yeah, mine says 0, okay.
That was one of my questions.
And we're not anticipating, I'm not forecasting
Yeah, let's
for next year.
I'm like, we haven't even got that.
Are there any other questions on the biweekly activity report?
I had no additional questions. Thank you.
Mr. Kress?
No, I
Thank
said-
you,
I
Trish,
raised it.
for
Thank you.
Thank you.
your work.
Thanks.
Thank you, board. Next item is to request a hearing for 2 zoning cases. Zoning commission met last week, passed 2 cases. I'll have Randy explain what 2 cases are there. So we have to establish a public hearing. We'll establish a date recommended by Randy, which we already have 1 tabled, so I would expect in October we'll just add those 2. So, Randy, go ahead.
Hi, hello, good evening, board. My video is not working, I apologize, but as Mr. Zahariff said, that on September 3rd, the zoning commission approved the 2 cases. So we're requesting the trustees set up a public hearing for the consideration of 816 and 817 at the regularly scheduled meeting on October 12th. And then also AX1, which is the carryover from one of the previous trustees meetings, will be on there. So what we're asking for is 816 first, 817, and then AX-1 cases. So 816 is the rezoning for the parcel adjacent to the Rust Business Center into a CPUD. 817 is the application of the Highway Business Overlay District onto a number of parcels. And again, why we're asking that series in that order is that representatives from the OU Foundation are kind of come up to the meeting and obviously try to get them out of the way so they can return home in an appropriate manner.
Okay. Any questions regarding the cases that will be, any problems with those that date?
We'll put them at the start time at 6:30.
Yeah.
We definitely know that we'll have 1 or 2 individuals traveling from Athens, Ohio for the one vote.
Oof.
And then
Okay.
have to go back that evening.
Sure.
All right, thank you on that.
Thank you, board.
Next item is the EV grant. Randy, if you want to explain this one.
Sure. So, as you've read, the CDNR staff has been working with Miami Valley Regional Planning regarding some potential sites around the township to place these electric vehicle charging stations. The EV stations, as they're called, would be funded through the Ohio EPA, through Diesel Modification Trust Fund grant. NVRC was looking into kind of some regional participants to apply for the grant. Well, the grant looked fairly promising for a time, looked like it was all paid for. That's why we were considering bringing it to you. However, after the submittal to Mr. Zahariff for the trustees meeting, we were informed through the company called EV, I think it's EV United, that the township might incur a significant cost for the installation and maintenance of that. The general grant would cover 15,000, and it looked like maybe the township might have to pick up 10,000. So basically, that was something that was unknown when we presented to Mr. Zaharieff, and in doing so, we have not budgeted for any of that, any of those expenses for this year, or even consider that. So we would like to kind of retract that approval to participate in that.
Board, there's also a reporting aspect that puts a burden on staff to report as well. And then after 5 years, there's an additional cost. So we just discovered that Friday afternoon. So as Randy indicated, we had a discussion today and late Friday. It's my recommendation that we do not move forward with this grant. We will look at other opportunities for a grant. This morning, speaking with staff, we're talked about potentially when we're reviewing some of the, we're meeting with Wright State, I believe, this week or next week regarding some capstone projects. But as we evaluate some of the language changes in the zoning resolution, is put some language in there regarding, as it keeps discussion with the board, additional formula for handicap spots and then EV spots as well in the future. So not necessarily requiring it, but maybe a spot that's available if they have one. So as Randy indicated, it is Randy's recommendation to me, based on the information, and my recommendation to you that we do not move forward with this grant.
Well, one of the things that I'm,
As Mr. Zarig said, we'll continue to look for other grants and other opportunities and pursue them as, and, obviously to benefit the township and its residents.
right. One of the things that I'm disappointed about is that, I'm the one that brought this forward, and based on the information that we had a class from the EV people 2 years ago from MVRPC that I attended, they encouraged us to do this. I would like to go back to MVRPC and find out why the dialogue has changed and see if MVRPC can shake loose some money for us to be a pilot program to do this. Because they're the one that was really advertising it and trying to get communities to be involved in specialized areas. So I'll take it upon myself to talk to Mr. Martin and see why the communication has not been transparent. To take it all the way to this spot and then have to find out other information. None of the information that you just disclosed was disclosed at any of the meetings that I attended about this AV. So it's very disappointing that they would hold back knowing the cost of, the hidden cost here. So I will make sure that I take this up to the next MVRPC meeting and find out why these hidden costs have not been disclosed, and to see if MVRPC can help us with that.
I would just ask that, Mr. Grosjean, if and when you do bring this back, that you go through the, I think Chief refers to it as the 16 points of light, kind of the whole recurring, non-recurring cost questions that we walk through when we approve major purchases, just as, so that we have, you understand that and we have that going forward. The other concern that I would have just in the future would be putting these stations, or these charging stations essentially, at fire stations, because vehicles have to be parked for minimum 30 minutes to get a partial charge, up to 4 hours to get an 80% charge, and in some cases, I mean, one of our best friends has a Tesla, and it can take essentially 4 to 5 hours to get an 80% charge. And so, do we want a vehicle parked at a station for 4 to 5 hours? And then who's paying for that, and is that the best use of taxpayer dollars?
Yeah, so the two places that we evaluated and potentially would be Station 63 next to the park, and then a spot over by 851 Orchard. What we did not want to do is pull it from any of the fire stations or the admin building. So we made it clear when we were doing the assessment was to pull from a separate meter and not associated with Beavercreek Township. So that was kind of one of the things that we stipulated.
generally, I mean, where you see a lot of these is that in front of hotels, in front of coffee shops, in front of retail establishments where they can go in and shop for a while they're charging, and it's sold. I mean, the other thing that's happening industry-wide right now, it happened first with solar panels, that we'll install the panels for free, you can sell your electric back to the grid, and you get your electric for free. And now, the next thing that's happening now is that we'll give you the charging stations for free. There are companies that will do that. And then, but you just have to make sure you can administer, like you said,
Yeah,
manage, and that you're okay with having vehicles parked there or staged there that may not belong on the property at that given time. So maybe a park or some other location might be
Well,
better.
we did share the information with John Downey for Park and Trails, so obviously that is a good location if you're going hiking someplace, or you're taking advantage of our trail system here in Beavercreek Township.
Yeah, go on a hike and charge up.
Charge it, go, come back. So we did identify those. They're just under our jurisdiction, so,
Right.
as we were asked to take a look at some opportunities here in the township, we reviewed it. What we did include, and you're right, Mr. Kretz, one of the things that I said was, well, what's the reporting aspect, and how much time is that for an employee to do? We understood there was an app you can get, things like that someone else could get to use, just like you would if you're downtown, using one of the bike systems downtown. But, so as we looked at this more and finally got the numbers, that was a little different story. We're not opposed to it.
Yep.
Right.
Not opposed to looking at grant money to help offset the cost, but long-term cost was a big issue for me as well as Randy.
Mr. Grogan, if you could reduce to writing the points that you found that were not compatible to, and not knowledgeable for us on this, and get it to me, I would appreciate that. I'll take it forward.
No problem.
Thank
No
you.
problem. I'll work with Max on that, definitely. Yeah, and again, I think this was, Mr. Chris, I appreciate the 15 points of light aspect of that, and we'll definitely research that further. And then, Alex, if I could say one other thing about the bi-weekly, or tri-weekly that we had. I did want to bring up two just highlight items of the risk department and of community development. Our staff met with ODNR and other stakeholders in regards to Oregon on the Little Miami River, which is south of 35, and we're having some additional meetings with some of the stakeholders next week if anybody wants to come out and play in the river a little bit. One group that's going to be with us is called River Rangers, which is a nonprofit, and they're going to help to evaluate the river and give us some guidance to mitigate those dangers that are on the river. So Thursday at 1:30, I think, Mr. Zaire, if you're going to be out there too, is that right?
Yep, I'll be dressed for the weather, though, just for hiking on the river.
And I've experienced the river last week, 4 times as my canoe went under. And so I can tell you where the bad spots are. But I don't think I want to be on the river anymore for this year or this life.
And we've had 2 rescues in that general area, so it's something that we're pursuing. And then the second thing that I wanted to kind of point out was just to publicly thank all the members of the Fire Prevention Bureau. Collectively, again, a great job was done with the fire protection inspection aspect of Soin, the South Tower of Soin. We worked together with Green County Building Regulations to get TCO, temporary occupancy on that South Tower, so they were able to open appropriately last week. So again, I think you guys will be impressed by the tour when we do schedule it, and it's a pretty neat facility.
Great.
And it's absolutely amazing, still amazing that we have a large hospital in our community now, from the time that I started a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. They have no hospital. They have the one that we have as big as it is now.
Any other questions on the bi-weekly?
Thank you for the comprehensive report.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next item is the added agenda item under information and technology, and that's a request for a proposal for IT management services. As the Board indicated in discussion in the budget hearings that, we wanted to reevaluate our outsource. And so, at that time, but I believe this is our third year, probably almost 4 years now, with one vendor. So, what I have in front of you is in draft mode, staff put it together. It is under legal review with Mrs. Frick. And so what I'm asking for tonight is to go ahead and approve it pending legal review, so I can get it on our website and social media sites and put it out there. We have been contacted by several vendors after we did the information, request for information. And so I know the last time we had only one vendor actually turn in the RFP, so I anticipate a few other companies in this one, and then obviously that will come back to the board to evaluate whether we stay with our current vendor or make a change. So the reason we're kind of moving it kind of quick is for timing reasons. If we have to make notification, we would like to make that break as the year turns, and potentially be with a new vendor if the RFPs come back that warrant a change. So I can answer any questions. Chief Easter, who helped put it together, actually put it together, and also did the request for information as well, so I'm here to answer any questions. If not, I've got a motion.
Is there any responsibility that you handle or that Chief Easter handles that we could reasonably add to this? So I mean, essentially to take anything off of what you have to do on a normal day as far as IT or what Chief Easter has to do. So
I think that's the intent when we
it-
started putting some of these things
it
in
looked
here.
pretty comprehensive, but is there anything,
Yeah.
is there anything left on the table that either you would have to do or that Chief Easter would be the only one that would be able to do or need to do?
I'll let the chief speak that. In regards to what I'm looking for is if we're doing a project and inspecting township-wide, is more of the project manager as opposed to the hands-on that sometimes we have to do. And I'll let the chief speak to that as well.
Okay.
Really, one of the reasons that this is so comprehensive of an RFP is because a lot of the things that I do handle or that others handle have been moved into this. Part of that was a disconnect in the expectations from the last contract round, so we've learned from that and tried to roll some of those in there. We've even included staff training on a quarterly basis as part of this RFP.
Good.
And a knowledge-based help desk questions into our own system to try and address and take the workload off of staff internally and rely more on these outsourced services.
Good.
So the only things that are left are subject matter expert type pieces as they fit into our organization. And those will be basically as determined by the township administrator in this particular RFP.
Great.
Good.
I make a motion to approve pending legal review the request for proposals for information technology managed services for Beavercreek Township and authorize the township administrator to advertise the RFP.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, board. Next item is on page 130. First of all, before I move on, I'd like to thank Chief Easter for all the work he did on this and getting it together.
Do you know how long it'll take for legal review?
No, we should have it this week.
Okay.
Yeah, sometime in the next day or two.
Thank you.
Next item's on page 130 is the bi-weekly report. Are there any questions?
Alex, when we advertise that RFP, again, I suggest we put that on LinkedIn, we put that on to expand essentially where we can, and then we can share it all from there.
Right.
So,
We will put it on our social medias, including our new LinkedIn media account, plus our website under the RFP section. We'll also notify the other vendors that were
Good.
interested before that the RFP's out, and we will put it also on the Township Association website.
Great.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any questions on the bi-weekly?
I had none.
I had none.
All right.
Thank you, board. Next item is on page 133 of your packet. It's a purchase request for crack sealer for roads. Mr. Mr. Parks is here to answer any questions. So, a motion.
Evening.
Hi, Mr. Parks. I'd like to change the direction of your camera. We can see your face now instead of the side of you.
It took me a little while to figure it out, but I finally
You
figured it
did,
out.
you did good. Are there any questions regarding the crack sealer?
I'll make a motion to approve purchase request 10825 to DJL Material and Supply for 3 pallets of sealant and 1 pallet of fiber in an amount of $6,626, $6,626.25, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 133 of your packet as well, with a motion on page 134 of the additional documents starting on page 135. This is the HVAC replacement for Station 63. This was budgeted this year. We did put it out for an RFP. We did receive those bids, did a public opening, which is a little bit different doing public openings via YouTube Live, but it seems like the vendors like it too. We had 42 people, I don't think on this last one, but
Wow.
we had 18 people watching it. For the fire station, it was 42 watching it. So, Mr. Parks is here to answer any questions.
Any questions regarding the split system at Station 63?
What was alternate 1?
It was to take care of the condensation level in the station, which has been an ongoing problem for probably since shortly after the station was opened.
Okay. So dehumidification, essentially?
It's basically going in and we did the ductwork. What the issue is now from reading through these proposals is the space between the drop ceiling and the roof deck. There's not enough return air up in there to kind of level it out. So the 2 proposals we really looked at, actually there was 3, but one was just priced way too far out there. It's going in and getting some additional conditioned air up in that space, and then putting insulated diffusers in all of the rooms that have them.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the things I'll point out on the Air Force One, which is what we're recommending, is we did do an additional $5,000 as a contingency. If we find anything in the attic space, which is above the roof there, they're gonna go ahead and camera that with the thermal imaging camera. So anything they find, they're gonna come back to us with a recommendation. This is just to keep the process moving forward while they're there. I don't anticipate having to spend any of that contingencies, but we'll see.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve purchase request number 10827 to Air Force One for the replacement of 4 split systems, including alternate 1 and alternate 2, and an amount of $41,618, and authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
The board, next item is on page 149, it's bi-weekly report for the road department. Are there any questions?
I had none.
I had none.
Thank you, board.
And I had-
Thank you, Tim. Next item is on page 150 of your packet, is the State of Ohio Diversity and Inclusion Technology Internship Program. This was recently established through the Lieutenant Governor's Office. It's a great opportunity for the township. We have the information here in the packet. Obviously, if we are awarded the grant, we have to go back to the board and get authorization to hire the interns. So Chief's here to explain the program.
Muted.
Chief, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I had a great spiel going too. So. As Mr. Zahari just mentioned, we were first made aware of the program through a notification from the governor's office, actually through one of his COVID updates. And exploring the opportunity, it looked like it might be a good match for us. An agency such as ourselves can apply for up to 3 positions. The 3 positions that we would like to try and hire if we can find matching applicants. One would be for fire protection engineering to work in the fire prevention office, and would hopefully be an opportunity to vet an individual for either a regular part-time position or obviously for long-term continuity. And then the other 2 positions would work with command staff, especially administration in the accreditation offices. One for GIS service and the other for data management services. So those are 2 skill areas that we don't have strong firefighting backgrounds with, and so if we can find some STEM interns that are interested in that, we are looking for graduate level interns that could hopefully take some projects like that and turn them around. The advantage to the township is that the state will pick up 2/3 of the cost of the internship. They have a $15 an hour minimum wage requirement, which we could meet, but then they would pick up $10 of that 15. We do have to hire them as a full-time, or not a full-time, excuse me, as a W-2 employee. They would be part-time employees, but a W-2 employee for that essentially 1,000 hours that the internship would last through this program. So making the board aware of it, we did put our name in the hat with the state, and if they can come up with some matches, we'll come back to the board with specifics and then a request to, like I said, hire those part-time interns for 1,000 hours per internship.
And to clarify, these would be essentially part-time seasonal, no benefit?
Correct.
Okay. Great.
Yes, Chief, thank you. I think this is a great opportunity.
Yep.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 150 as well, is the COVID impact to the community, followed by on page 152, bi-weekly report. Chief's here to answer any questions regarding both.
And as you can probably realize through reading through the document, this is a 2-week period that was very much like most of the rest. So we haven't deviated too much in impact to the organization, in workload. We're seeing, again, some of those slight number increases, as we discussed last time, to get closer to pre-COVID levels, but we're certainly not there yet, and we've remained down 14% overall call volume, which is helping us manage all the other issues that come along with COVID. So.
Great.
Any other questions or comments
I
to
had
the
none.
Chief?
Thank you.
I had none. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Board. That's all I had.
Okay. Legal advisor, Don, do you have any comments or statements to make?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you very much. Keep well. Our fiscal officer, Mr. Rushing, I believe you have some things.
Yes, good evening, Board. First, for your consideration is a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Greene County Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. As the board may be aware, and for the new trustee, this is part of the annual budgetary process as established by Ohio tax law. The board certified estimated revenues to the County Budget Commission in lieu of a formal tax budget, which the board may be familiar with. The Greene County Auditor, or Budget Commission rather, waived that requirement due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and instead we certified our estimated revenues. From this process, the Greene County Budget Commission returns an official estimated certificate of resources. This estimated certificate of resources is the benchmark to the foundation to our appropriations or our budget for 2021. I do have to admit this is somewhat of a superfluous exercise that finance officers go through. because this is purely estimated resources. The final resources and the official certificate will be certified by the Budget Commission on or about January 1 of the year. We always budget conservatively in terms of revenues, and we estimate that we will expend all budgeted items, even though we know internally that some budgeted expenditures will not be completed. Therefore, the actual fund balances for January 1 will be greater than what we estimated them to be. So we know that even though this certificate is less than the official certificate from 2020, we know that the official certificate will be greater than what's estimated here. In addition, the Greene County Auditor, as we know, is always very much conservative in estimates for real estate settlements, budgeting generally 3 to 5% swing from what they actually come in. According to tax law, the board has to certify this resolution and submit it to the Greene County Budget Commission no later than October 1st. I do have 2 copies, one for our resolution book and one will be sent to the Greene County Budget Commission. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions?
Mr. Rushing, in 7 years, that's the most in-depth definition and explanation of that process that I've ever heard. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great job.
Taxes and certificates, have at it.
Board, I would recommend just passing that as presented, there's no changes to
Okay.
what's in the packet.
If you just want to read the resolution and the bold print on just the title on page.
I was going to say, just, we're using essentially their resolution.
Correct.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor as presented.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you. Give me a moment, board, while I complete this document for the Budget Commission. I'll pass along for your signatures. And there's 2 copies. Just sign, please. Thank you. The next item in your packet is a resolution certifying the additional revenue for the COVID-19 Relief Fund, as well as authorizing supplemental appropriations to the budget and certifying the same to the Greene County Auditor, to the Budget Commission, so our current certificate of resources can be increased. As the board may recall, we did receive the second installment to the Coronavirus Relief Fund. This second installment was about half of the first installment, or exactly $51,606.96. By adopting this resolution, it will add and certify the revenue, so then we'll have the additional resources to then appropriate, so that staff and the board can recommend the proper expenditures to come out of the COVID-19 Relief Fund. And I know Ms. Wallace can attest, we already had a couple ideas with record retention and other items that we're looking at. I know the staff is working very hard to make sure we utilize entirely these resources. For the board's knowledge, there will be possibly a third installment to the COVID-19 Relief Fund that's going through the current process right now at the state. Unless there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or you can just motion to approve the resolution as written in the title. Just the title is fine.
What's the timeline to burn these dollars?
We have to encumber the funds by October the 15th.
So same.
So,
Okay.
and that is
Quick.
a little bit. It is a little bit of a pushing up against the wire, but I'm sure staff will make sure we don't leave any resources behind.
There we
Yeah,
go.
we'll have some purchases, some that won't come to the board, they'll be under the 5,000 limit, that'll be related to this, and that'll be put through Mr. Rushing. And then we'll have
and this is for the board's knowledge, we have to encumber the funds by October 15th, but we actually have until the end of December to actually expend the funds, meaning leave our bank account essentially.
Any other questions on this resolution? Okay,
I make a motion to adopt a resolution to authorize supplemental appropriations and certify revenue for the available certificate of resources for Fund 2905, the COVID-19 Relief Fund as presented.
Second.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Kretz?
Yes.
Trustee Wallace?
yes.
Thank you. Last resolution for your consideration, board, is a little housekeeping. Is to reclassify a transfer of funds per resolution 2019-59. Reclassify that as an advance. This came out of conversations with our IPA, or independent public accounting firm, BHM. It's more or less housekeeping, just from a pretty old Auditor of State bulletin, but there's an Auditor of State bulletin from 1998 seeking the guidance. We just need to reclassify this transfer, which was in the amount of $1,058,059 from the fire fund to the FEMA Safer Grant Fund, and reclassify it as an advance. What this essentially will do is the Auditor of State recommends that activity from any FEMA funds occurs in a single fund. However, if the organization desires, the activity can take place in multiple funds. A transfer is a permanent transfer, for lack of a better term, from one fund to the next. It does not cross fiscal years, and it's permanent, whereas an advance is essentially we're lending one balance of a fund to another balance in anticipation of revenue coming in that will repay back that fund. What will occur here is as staff seeks draws on the Safer Grant, that revenue will be receipted in the Safer Grant Fund, and then the Safer Grant Fund will then advance back the money essentially loaned from the fire fund to complete that transaction. Again, this is simple housekeeping, something that accountants look for and that we're abiding and moving forward with.
Thank you.
And I do have a resolution here. There's also one in the email, but if you just want to pass it as written in the title, that will suffice.
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution to reclassify Resolution 2019-059, transfer of funds to an advance of funds, as presented.
Second.
Trustee Kretz? Apologies.
Yes.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Wallace?
Yes.
Thank you, and that's all I have, board.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rushing.
Thank you.
Board, we do have an attorney waiting for the executive session, so I recommend going to executive session. More time is
Yes.
I make a motion to move to executive session under Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1 to consider the employment and compensation of a public employee. Do you want me to read the rest of it? All right. Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G2 to consider the purchase of property for public purposes or for the sale of property at competitive bidding if premature disclosure of information would give an unfair competitive bargaining advance to a person whose personal private interest is adverse to the general public interest. No member of a public body shall use Division G2 of this section as a subterfuge for providing covert information to prospective buyers or sellers. A purchase or sale of public property is void if the seller or buyer of the public property has received covert information from a member of a public body that has not been disclosed to the general public in sufficient time for the other prospective buyers and sellers to prepare and submit offers. Under Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G3, conferences with an attorney for a public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are the subject of pending or independent court action under Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G for preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Skip it.
All right, we're coming back from executive session. I'll need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Do you want to do that first, or?
No, let's go ahead and finish, do a resolution, and then we'll go back to the trustee meetings.
I make a motion to adopt a resolution to hire Chrisona Anderson Lutz, a full-time clerk 1, step 1. Read the whole thing.
Yeah. this is good.
Whereas the Board of Trustees of Beavercreek Township, Greene County, State of Ohio, move to approve the hiring of Chrisona Anderson Lutz, effective September 17, 2020, as a full-time clerk, step 1, step 1. Whereas this position shall be cost allocated 50% general fund, 50% fire fund. If a fiscal year shall have an additional pay period, the incumbent shall be paid the same computed biweekly amount as a normal 26 pay fiscal year. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of Beavercreek Township, Greene County, Ohio, favorably pass the above resolution. Further be it resolved that all formal actions of the Board of Trustees concerning and relating to the adoption of this resolution are being adopted at a duly called, authorized, open meeting of the Board of Trustees on the date set forth above. Such meeting being duly called pursuant to and in compliance with all legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Kretz.
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes. Now we're going back to trustee meetings. Excuse me. MVRPC, no meeting. Did we? Wait a minute. This is the 14th. We did have a meeting. And I gave Mr. Zaharieff some personnel documents that might help the township in updating policies on COVID. And other than that, oh, I know. Mr. Woody Stout became the Regional Steward Award, and I congratulate him for having the Regional Steward Award from MVRPC for the Haydad Award through MVRPC, and it was a great honor, and we appreciate the fact that he was singled out in the meeting and presented that award. I had no other comments about the MVRPC meeting. Technical advisor meeting, any comments?
Coming up, after this week, next week.
Okay.
And I will have, just to let the board know, in regards to the transportation improvement, or the tip, through Minor Valley Regional Planning Commission, we probably will have a resolution on the next agenda authorizing me to go ahead and go through the process. We have two projects. We did, move up the Valley Bell connector, if you will, or the connection between the Oriental and Valley as priority over the Spring Valley, the Valley Springs connector to the interchange, which there's no money for right now, so.
Right. Thank you.
Regional planning, we have an executive committee tomorrow afternoon. Pretty much Beavercreek Township's dominated the agenda for it. I just want to make sure that we've got everything covered on there that we need. So the zoning text amendment for the aviation support district, the zoning map amendment for the highway business overlay district,
Correct.
and then the zoning map amendment for case 816, which will be before this board So,
So, just one thing for tomorrow, when it comes to the map, we included all the, parcel numbers except for the one, that goes through the river on the Dilly property that was, the board talked about. We looked into that, we would have to go through the, National Scenic River Federal Agency to get it approved, as well as ODNR, so not to hold up the process anymore, we pulled that property out, and it's in the middle, the river goes right through it, so I agree that, parcels could be sold as one, but, that part,
Sure.
can't be included without us going through, federal system or state system.
okay.
Good.
So, but as presented is the way we want it approved. I can't vote on
Correct.
it. I can't vote, I have to
Correct,
abstain
as
from it.
presented,
Just
yeah,
make sure.
we added all the other parcels that we talked about, when we brought it to you for review,
Right.
courtesy review.
Okay.
Health Department.
We had a meeting, did a COVID update, which is now a few weeks old, so.
Thank you.
They will be also, I just got a request today, they want to come and give a state of the department presentation to all the elected officials, so we talked about with us, so probably October.
Great.
School Superintendent, City Manager reports.
City manager, unfortunately, meeting was canceled due to contract negotiations. Obviously met with the school superintendent regarding the TIF.
Thank you. Right, Pat?
No meeting, we're trying to figure out security reasons of how we can meet on a federal level through Zoom or some sort of meeting.
Greene County Township, we're having a meeting tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, and it's being hosted by the Greene County Commissioners on a Zoom meeting with a picture of food.
And nothing on investment oversight unless Mr. Rushing has something.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Are any comments or other questions to anyone? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Trustee Kretz?
Yes.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Wallace?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you.